Hi everybody, and thanks so much for joining our market live. And this is a preview ahead of Nvidia's results, which are released after the US market closes on Wednesday. So that's coming up very, very quickly. And it's worth noting that Nvidia results were a major event for Wall Street. Over the last 8 quarters, the average price move in the one day after Nvidia results is 5%. However, that's not always been the case. So we're going to go a bit over the history now of how Nvidia's stock price performed in August. So looking at chart 1 first, as you can see here, this is the year-long chart of Nvidia. It's obviously done very well, but it did have a slip in August, as you can see. I've circled it there. So over the results that were released on the 28th of August, it did fall back by about 15%. And as you can see as well on the very right-hand side of that chart, Nvidia is slipping into this earnings report. So it's down about 5% in the past 5 days. Now, looking at what to expect from the earnings report, revenues are expected to come in at 33 billion, and we've also got net income or profit levels, which are expected to come in at 16.5 billion. So that is higher than what was expected in the last quarter. But it's never about the earnings, the actual revenue figures or the profit figures. It's always about, well, what are they doing next? Because remember, it's one of the world's most famous growth companies because it's a huge tech company. So what are they doing in the future? Now, their current chip, which is their graphics processing unit, is called Hopper, and that's done very, very well, and it's expected to see monster sales. But everyone wants to get a really good outlook for the next one that's in line. That is the Blackwell chip. So we know that there's been some delays on that, and we know from yesterday, so on Monday, there were reports that they had to redesign part of it. So there's real concern now that this could be delayed. And what does that mean for future earnings potential? That's why the Nvidia stock price really slipped on Monday. So we are seeing some weakness and some hesitation coming into this earnings report, but that essentially means the bar is a bit lowered. So if they can come out and say, well, actually in 2025, we're going to release Blackwell, it's going to do really, really well, then we could see Nvidia actually perform strongly and maybe go back to its average performance after earnings releases, which again, as I said, is about a 5% increase. So looking at chart 2 now, this chart shows 30-day volatility for the VIX index, which is the orange line, and also for Nvidia stock price. So we've seen a bit more volatility since August, obviously when in the VIX, when we saw that big sell-off in stocks. And we've also seen a bit more volatility since the election of Donald Trump last week. But one thing I do want to show, the white line is Nvidia's 30-day volatility, and that has been roughly tracking in line with the overall VIX index of late, but it does have a history of being more volatile than the VIX index. So whilst we could see, if we do, or what I should say is if we do see a sell-off in Nvidia, it's not necessarily going to drag the whole of the S&P 500 with it. Nvidia is still the world's most valuable company. It's well over $1 trillion valuation now, and it has been doing very, very well. But it does kind of operate outside of the S&P 500, if you like, because it is such a huge component of it. But it does tend to be a bit more volatile. So that doesn't necessarily, what Nvidia results tell us doesn't necessarily mean that it will move the S&P 500, but do watch it, because as you can see, volatility of the S&P 500 and the VIX index has been moving together a bit more closely recently compared to the rest of the year. But overall, we are looking about whether or not this can reignite the AI trade, which has been flagging a little bit of late. There's been some more questions about it, but Nvidia, the smaller companies, the AI companies that may be disappointed earnings expectations for Q3, that's not necessarily relevant for Nvidia because it is so huge. It has 98% of the GPU market. It kind of operates in its own little bubble. One last thing to talk about, there is a risk-off tone to markets today, and that's due to Russia and Ukraine. There's been escalation in the conflict there. So we are seeing a bit of a risk-off tone. Those indices that have defensive qualities like the FTSE 100, they're doing better. We're seeing gold rally again, and we're also seeing the yen as well rally, and that's all because of the safe haven trade is back on in the short term. But overall, we think that Nvidia results will continue to dominate markets, specifically on Wednesday night. So good luck trading, and we hope to see you soon.